Hi, so that's 2 weeks behind us and 4 lessons completed. So by now you should be starting to be building a much clearer picture and understanding of your own relationship with food and emotional eating. So over the last couple of weeks, we have taken a trip down memory lane. We've started to explore your own relationship with food in the here and now, and also starting to look back to some of the experiences and messages that we received as children around food. We've also started to look at emotional triggers and the whole cycle of emotional eating, and started to get you becoming much more aware and in tune with what is triggering you on a daily basis. And we've also started to introduce the concept of mindful eating. So there's lots that you have been focusing on over the last couple of weeks. And the thing is about this stuff, there is no quick fix. It's an ongoing process, and it takes you giving time and attention to this stuff. So I suppose you're going to get out of this course what you put into it. That's not me saying that in a judging way. I've been there, I've lived this life and do so. However, it is also about looking at what gets in the way of us making these changes. Why do we sabotage ourselves, and what about people who are around us, and how can they influence getting in our way? So going forward, in week 3, we are going to start exploring the cycle or the stages of change. And change is really, really important, or understanding the stages of change is really important, because all too often we only focus on the action phase. We only focus on the bit that we feel is moving us forward, and that's great because that's the bit where we feel like we've got a sense of achievement. But when you can start to understand that there are various stages that we go through when engaging in change, it starts to help us understand that sometimes we're not in these action phases. And the more we can begin to understand that, the more we can sort of step away from frustration and blame and those feelings of failure we get when we so-called fall off the wagon. So, week 3 is all about exploring your relationship to change, and also starting to get you thinking about using the understanding experiences you've had over the last couple of weeks, starting to get you thinking about what needs to change for you going forward, and then moving into some techniques that are going to help you with your change process going forward. So the cycle of change, the first lesson, so lesson 5 for week 3, is all about the cycle of change. So there's a bit of theory in there, and it's going to take you through the various stages that we all go through. These are predictable stages, and as you start to explore and apply it to your own relationship with change, hopefully you'll start to sort of almost get those aha moments of when you've been in the various stages. And so lesson 5 is broken down into 2 exercises. So the first one, have a read of the theory around the cycle of change, and then the first exercise is all geared around you working through those various stages and relating them to your own history. So going through the pre-contemplative stage and starting to think about how long have you been stuck in that phase and what has kept you stuck there. So the first exercise is about you becoming really clear on how you relate to that process. It's real. When I first this cycle was first introduced to me, it was like a light bulb moment, because it really helped me to see that actually lapses are completely normal, that actually being stuck in that phase where your head's in the sand a little bit and you don't want to face the truth, even though your clothes are getting tighter. These are predictable cycles that we go through. So knowing that, and knowing that that's documented, kind of normalizes that, there isn't something wrong with us when we're not only in the action phases. So it can be a really nice model that helps us to step away from blame and those feelings of failure, because understanding and awareness is so fundamental to this process. Once you can actually start to relate to the fact that it's not about blame, that it's not about lack of willpower or greed or anything like that. Actually, these are completely normal human processes that we go through. So the second exercise for lesson number 5 is we're going to start planning your change. And, I'm sure when you've set goals in the past, it's very much been focused on the physical side of weight loss. So the actual what needs to happen in order for you to lose weight. So it's very much focused about eating less and exercising. Okay. And of course that needs to be part of the process. If you're overweight and you want to lose weight, then there will need to be an element of those goals, okay, in there, or those actions in there. But hopefully over the last few weeks you're starting to see and you're starting to gather a much bigger picture of the kinds of things that need to be in your change plan in order for you to make long-term sustainable change. And that's what we're going to look at in this lesson. Okay, so there's more information in the post as usual, but we're going to go through a sequence of questions that are not going to just get you setting goals in terms of what you want to achieve, but they're going to get you starting to think about firstly exactly what it is you want to achieve. So creating a vision statement, stepping into the future, how do you want to be in your own world in a year's time, in 2 years time, in 5 years time. So really starting to visualize, if you can make the changes you want to make, how life's going to be for you. And then sort of moving into your reasons for change, and again, thinking much more deeply than just the physical impact. Start thinking about emotional impact, psychological impact, and physical impact. And when you start to really explore what change means for you, we can really start setting some meaningful goals that aren't just about eating less and exercising and the physical changes that you want to make, because that's only a small part of the picture. So we're then going to move through to getting you thinking about resources. What is it that you actually need in order for this to happen? So there might be a financial resource required, because you might find that actually you need to embark on some counselling or some further development. Also time, time is a resource, and if you want to make significant change, you have to allocate time to it. We get caught up in this world of being busy all the time, and we don't make time for ourselves. And I'm telling you now, if you don't make time for these changes, they're not going to happen. And I've been there. I know how easy it is that, the hour of time you allocate to yourself, the minute something comes up, the kids need something or work needs something, that's the bit of time that gets eaten up and absorbed. And over time, we just stop spending that time on ourselves. So, start thinking about the resources that you're going to need in order to make these changes, because it's really important. Then we're going to look at supporters. What support do you need for you to achieve these goals? And it's important here, automatically we think about the people that are around us. And yes, it's important that we get support from them, but that support isn't always there. And you know what? That is what it is. Sometimes we have to find support in the right places, and sometimes that is, Facebook got some loads of groups that you can be involved in if that's your thing, or maybe finding a local group that you can go along to. So kind of aligning yourself with people who are going to support you on this process, and it's not always going to be the people that you expect. So it's having that, being mindful of that. That leads us on to resistance, so your own resistance to change. You've looked at the cycle of change. So there, some of the phases there, like the pre-contemplation and contemplation phases, are almost us kind of putting our head in the sand and resisting the changes that we say we want for ourselves. So it's important that we start to be aware of resistance. I think all too often we set goals and we kind of set them with rose-tinted specs on, and we don't look at the reality of our goals. And I'm sure if, like me, you've got reams and reams of experience that show us that not everybody's supportive, and that we do have resistance to the changes, not only our own personal resistance, but also resistance from other people. So this activity is all about getting you to put all this stuff on the table, so as when you move into the action phase, which is what lesson 6 is going to be all about, you're actually going into it with a much better awareness of what might come up for you, what might trip you up, what might lead to sabotage, because awareness is fundamental to long-term change. So we're also going to look at strategies for overcoming resistance. That's what I want you to think about as well. So you're thinking about how you might resist and in what ways, and also how other people might be resistant to you, and how can you start to think about, if these resistances come up, how can you start working through them. So that is lesson 5. Okay, so you're going to explore the cycle of change and how that relates to you, and then you're going to actually start thinking about the things that you want to change based upon what you've been learning over the last couple of weeks. And then lesson 6, we're actually going to start moving into taking action, and we're going to go back to those emotional triggers, and I'm going to teach you work through some techniques with you to help you, firstly, maybe not being so triggered, but also dealing with triggers if you are. So enjoy lesson 5, and I'll see you all very soon.